You guys are live. So good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing out there? I'm going to say it now. That was weak. All right, let's try it again. How's everybody doing out there? Greetings and welcome to our panel. I am the Baron Longo Von Doren, here with El Sapo de Pesco and Mrs. The Werewolf, and we collectively are known as Nightmare Theater. We host really bad movies on specifically public broadcasting now. We started out, actually El Sapo and I started out in 2001 hosting movies. We used a local channel where we went out and sold our own ads and shot our own shows and put it all together, put it on there in our hometown of Pensacola, Florida. We did that for about 5 years, and then we moved to the University of West Florida there, so we started showing our shows. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, our local PBS affiliate, WSRE, approached us about doing our show with them. So we've been doing it with them ever since for the last 4 or 5 years. And I guess the first year we were on, we spread out to WFSU in Tallahassee. So we were on the PBS station in Tallahassee. After that, we went into Fort Myers, Florida. We went into Jacksonville, Florida. Then we added Knoxville was the first station in Tennessee to add us. Then we got Chattanooga and Nashville. And from January this year, we added the whole state of Alabama. So all the PBS stations in Alabama show our show every Saturday night. So that's kind of the brief history. I'm Mike, this ship, that's Libby. Let me do you want to take your head off? Or? Yeah, it's very hot right now. Yeah, Chip and I started out, we've done things for a long time, been creative kind of folks. We had our own magazine for a while. We were very young, we were in professional wrestling. Chip was my manager and I wrestled. So we've always done stuff together. We had a radio show. We've done a lot of things together, and so we were just looking for something else to do. And it was early 2001 before. It was a really weird year to career in October of 2001 because of what happened in September of 2001. Why did you get it? No, it was a little worse than that. September 11th, right before we were about to premiere, which was a big, it was just crazy. It was just really weird. It felt really weird to be putting a horror TV show on right after all of that real life horror happened. But Chip and I have been talking about it. We came up with these characters. The Baron is, he's kind of middle management in hell. He's not really moved up the ladder. His big accomplishment was so that was kind of his big accomplishment. That and Millie Vanilli, he was sort of behind that. And then El Sapo was
costume that I bought and legitimately planning to wear it out. I wasn't going to do it as a costume. And then we had gone to DragonCon, I think, and bought some wrestling.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we're finally going to do this, get a character up. So I grabbed the costume, grabbed the mask, and came up with a name. It all fit. So we started, I just said El Sapo de Pesco. Sounded like some good Hungarian word. Turns out they were Spanish. So I didn't know what I was doing whatsoever. But it worked, and so we had a good time.
And it loosely translates to
Furious Frog.
Furious Frog, yeah. Frog with a storm. Yeah.
Stormy Frog.
Yeah, and so El Sapo is a very poor Mexican wrestler. He did not perform very well in the wrestling ring. The Baron sort of took pity upon him and brought him down to be his manservant. And then about 3 years into the show, we were doing shows. Well, actually, we should talk about that first. In 2003, after we started doing shows, Spike TV reached out to us. You guys remember Spike TV, which is now Paramount Network or something? Spike TV, and it had been the national network before that. I don't know why that was, but Spike TV reached out to us and they said, hey, we're looking for somebody to host movies on Halloween. Would you guys be interested in submitting some tapes? And I think they reached out to about 6 different horror hosts from across the country. And we were lucky enough, El Sapo and I, Chip and I were lucky enough to win the segment that kicked off the whole thing. It was called Ghouls Gone Wild Weekend. We got to host two movies. One was Blood Angels, starring Lorenzo Lamas, which is just as good as it sounds. And then we did another movie called Santa's Sleigh, which some of you may have seen, with Bill Goldberg and James Caan, a bunch of just really strange people. They're both really, really terrible movies, and we got to host those two on national television. So that was kind of a feather in our cap. Shortly after that, we started doing live events. We started hosting live movies. We were lucky enough at that time to have an independent movie theater in Pensacola, which is something that's kind of disappearing around the country now. Unfortunately, due to regular movie theaters are starting to close down because of Netflix and streaming and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But we had a local theater that would let us do things, and they had a bar in the theater, and it was our kind of place. Had tables and chairs in the bar and food, and you could go in there and watch movies, and there was second run. And so we did our show. We had Andy Fox, who's a novelist who's written several books. Fat White Vampire Blues is one of his books. This is probably his best-selling book. We had another guy that we knew, Joel Robertson, who had made a short film that had been on the Fangoria compilation. So we called them and said, if you guys want to come down and hang out with us and do a show, they were like, sure. So we showed several short films. Andrew was there signing books, and our feature was Robot Monster, which, if you guys have seen Robot Monster, you know is not a very good movie. But we did show it in 3D, and we gave everybody 3D glasses. And so we expected maybe we'd get 25, 30 people there. We showed up to go into the theater, and there was lines wrapped around the block. So people really turned out for it. We were very excited about that. And Living here was one of those people who came out that night to see it. He was excited to see it. And we got to be friends with him. And then he joined our show later on that year, I think, as 2003. Yeah, in the Christmas episode, Santa brought us a gift, and it was our pet werewolf Mittens. So we added Mittens to the cast at that point. We've done a lot of episodes since then. We've kind of gone all in. We made a lot of appearances. We used to do a cult movie film festival in Pensacola. We first did. We used to do a thing every year called Shocktoberfest, where we had 4 movies every Friday and Saturday night. Now we hosted that in the theater. Unfortunately, the Silver Screen closed down, and so we haven't been able to do as many live things as we used to. But we do still do a lot of cons and go out and talk about the show. And usually host something. I know this is a little different. We don't have as many after-hours things, but we usually host a movie and do things like that. And it will actually be, we're going to Infinity Con in Tallahassee next month. And we're also, in June. And then also at the end of June, we'll be in Magic City in Birmingham as well. So we'll probably host something there. So if you guys want to come out and watch an episode with us, please do that. I think what else we should tell them before we start talking about movies. We're about to shoot our 4th season for PBS. That'll be in July. We'll shoot that. We're writing right now. We have some really terrible movies lined up. Manus and Hands of Fate will be one of our movies this year. There's a movie called Horror at 37,000 Feet, which is a 70s TV movie with William Shatner about a demon on an airplane. It's really bad. What else do we got? We got Curse of the Swamp Creature, Bigfoot, The Legend of Sasquatch.
Ninja Wars.
Yeah, Ninja Wars. We're doing our first Kung Fu movie. So we're going to do that for this coming season. And we've just got a lot of really bad movies lined up, but we've shown plenty of bad movies in the past. That's kind of our forte. We've always loved that kind of stuff. Separately, even before we met, we all love the bad movies. We all love B movies, and so that's just something that brought us all together. So we're going to have a big season this coming season. I think there's a lot of good stuff. When we started the show, we did it all on Sony Handycam ourselves. We built our own sets. We did all this stuff. It's been really nice in the last 4 years, 5 years when we've had the folks at PBS helping us, because we have 3 cameras and we have a camera crew. We have a standing set with teleprompters and built by professionals and all of that, and editing and all of that stuff.
You're saying, and we started out in a Sony Handycam propped up on a pile of books.
Yeah.
And we didn't have just books. So we had stacked up on a pile of books, and then we went into the first day in the studio. There were 3 cameramen, a sound man, a guy running the telephone. We're not supposed to be here. It was really amazing.
And it was cool. The station that we bought time on to put the show on, and we would sell our ads and bought time during the very beginning. we knew a guy there who's now our producer at PBS, Brent Burton. He's moved up a ways too. He's doing switching for basically a least access channel back in those days. But he was like, "You gotta get me the show on 3/4 inch tape." And I was like, "How do we get at that time? 3/4 inch tape was already outmoded, outdated. It's the huge cassettes like this that you put in the machine." And he's like, "Well, just meet me at McDonald's in the parking lot." And so he shows up at McDonald's in the parking lot, and he opens up his trunk, and he's got a 3/4 inch machine in his trunk that he's taken from the station. And he said, "This is just sitting in storage. You guys take it, and I need you to record your shows onto this." So we would have to shoot the shows, output them to a DVD, and then copy them onto 3/4 inch tape. That's how we would do it. And that was in the days when computers weren't quite as fast as they are today in a home computer. So I would literally spend probably 12 hours an episode just trying to get it all output, not even just edited, just output to the different mediums I had to go through because the computer was so slow at rendering everything. And so that's come a long way. So I think it's allowed us to have a much more ability to have much more creativity because we don't have to worry about the technical aspects of everything. We typically shoot the show in 1 week. We shoot 13 episodes in 5 days. That's a lot. We shoot like three to four a day. And our segments in the show take up about 25 to 30 minutes. So that's 25 to 30 minutes of actual usable footage, which means we have to shoot probably 2 hours, 3 hours per episode to get that much down. But we are lucky we write our scripts ahead of time. We have a teleprompter. We go in and we do all of that. But it is a drain. I mean, usually
we come in one more day and do the countries of the day.
Yeah, when we do green screen stuff, that's been another big addition to us. We have green screen now and we do a lot of fun stuff that way. And we also have a segment on our show where we visit the curator. We're lucky enough in Florida to have some businessmen that are big movie fans, the Mara brothers, and they have a museum. They have props from just about anything you can think of. I know I saw maybe 6 months ago they bought a windshield from the Joker's car for the Dark Knight Returns. You know, they would buy things like they would just buy props, all kinds of stuff. And so we have a guy named the curator, and Julio Diaz plays the curator, who is actually the curator of the Maryland Movie Museum. And he brings in a different prop to every episode, and we talk about that prop, and we talk about how props are used in movies. So we have a little bit of an educational, it's silly, but a little bit of an educational side to us too, because we are on PBS, we're trying to keep it classy. Right? Right. We're trying to follow in the footsteps of Mr. Rogers and keep it classy.
But we've had like Gremlin, Daffy Gremlin, Gremlins 2, the animatronic.
Yeah.
We've had Scully when she was in the
from the X-Files movie. They have Lopan's hand from Big Trouble in Little China, the actual armature that moves and blows. They have that. So we've had all that stuff on the show. We've been very lucky in that sense that we get to show that off to people. They have a lot of movie posters and all kinds of stuff that we've been able to show off. You know, we had a segment where we brought in different movie posters, we talked about the different sizes of movie posters that you find, because before 1972 or 3, movie posters were different sizes than they are now. So there's a lot of changes and things like that. So that's a lot of a part of the show as well. There's a lot of fun that we have. It's a lot of work, but I think we only do this for the fun of it. We really enjoy it. I know a lot of people are familiar with either Elvira or Spinduli, that's about all they know. But horror hosts have been around for as well. Local people doing this on TV. One of our great mentors is Count Howard Duvall, who was in the Washington D.C. area for a long time. He's a host that he's a vampire host. They actually said that the rumor is that the night that Watergate was broken into, you guys know Watergate, right? The Watergate Hotel was broken into by Nixon's people to steal secrets. They said the reason that guy was able to get in so easily is that the security guard was watching Count Duvall. I mean, he would go up against Saturday Night Live in the 70s and beat Saturday Night Live. I mean, he was that popular at the time. So he's been a big mentor to us. We're a part of a group still called Host Underground, which we connect with other horror hosts from across the country, and we all kind of work with each other to talk about movies, talk about how we're doing things. I think we're probably besides Finn Dooley and maybe Marlena Midnight, who's up in Ohio, I think we're the only ones on broadcast TV. There's somebody in Arizona who's now off broadcast, but we're still one of the only ones on broadcast TV, which is kind of sad, but a lot of them are wrong. They do have their own websites, they put them on YouTube, and so, you know, that's just a part of how the world has changed. Anything you guys want to talk about, or we want to open it up to some questions from people? You guys have questions? Because we'd like to hear them. We're here to talk about making a TV. We're also here to talk about, you know, bad movies. If you guys have suggestions of bad movies we haven't seen, we'd like to hear them. So, anybody have anything they want to talk about? Because I'm doing all the talking. Somebody does. Come on. Yes, sir.
So, what's your favorite bad movie?
My favorite bad movie is Plan 9 from Outer Space. I don't think there's a higher mark in bad movies than Plan 9 from Outer Space. Not because it's necessarily, you know, years ago, the Medved brothers, they're the ones that kind of popularized Ed Wood. Back in the 80s, they started talking about, there's a film called It Came from Hollywood. That's a compilation film that has, you know, John Candy, Bill Radner, and Cheech and Chong, Dan Aykroyd hosting different segments talking about showing clips from bad movies. And the Medveds were kind of big behind it. They were movie critics at the time, and they kind of pushed bad movies, and they loved it. And Ed Wood, you know, have you guys seen Tim Burton's Ed Wood with Johnny Depp? It's very fictionalized, but it's kind of the true story. I mean, Ed was a guy who wanted to make movies, had no clue how to do it. He did it anyway, which is an ethic that we really admire. We did the same thing. We didn't know what we were doing either, but we wanted to do it, so we did it. Plan 9 it's almost charming in its ineptitude. That's the thing about it. So because it's so poorly made, it's very fun. I mean, there's literally a scene of a guy who's playing a police detective who is, you know, talking to his officers, and he's got a gun in his hand the whole time, and he's gesturing with the gun towards them. He's like, "You go over there, you go over there." And then at one point, he scratches his head with his gun. If you watch the movie, you'll see that. There's also, you know, Ed Wood was friends with Bela Lugosi, and Bela Lugosi was in the twilight of his life. He was a heroin addict at that time. He was on, you know, morphine, painkillers, and really not in good shape. But Ed found him and gave him a chance to make a couple movies. So he made a movie called Leonard Linda, which is the first sort of movie about cross-dressing, about transvestism. Ed Wood was a transvestite. He had an Angora fetish and liked to wear Angora sweaters. And it was very, very taboo at that. You know, we're still dealing with all these issues with trans things that people don't understand, and it's silly, and we should just treat people like people. But at the same time, in those days, it was completely underground. You could not show up in Angora sweater and as a guy, and people would go, "Oh, that's fine." You know, it was just really bizarre. But there was a tennis player named Christine Jorgensen, and it turned out that was the first sex changes that was really talked about in the world. So Ed on this to make this movie Leonard Linda, which is bizarre to say the least. It's got a lot of you know, transvestism. It's got, you know, the whole movie's about him hiding this from his girlfriend. So she'll find out that her sweaters are stretched out. This is made in the 50s, so you should really seek it out. It's really something special. But Bela played a part in that where he was the puppet master who was pulling the strings, who was making these people have all of these issues, and there's a lot of stock footage of buffaloes. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Go watch it. It's very entertaining. And then they made a movie called Bride of a Monster, which was much more of a standard sci-fi film where Bela Lugosi plays Dr. Vornoff, who is an evil scientist who's trying to create something from that. And that has Thor Johnson, who you guys have seen in Ed Thor, a wrestler, big man, bald man, could barely speak English. He was Swedish, could barely speak English. So they made Bride of the Monster. Like, if you go on to make Plan 9 from Outer Space, they shoot a few scenes with Bela, and Bela Lugosi dies. But that's not going to stop Ed from making this movie with Bela Lugosi. So he brings Bela back as a zombie kind of character. The aliens come down, and what they're doing, the plan 9 is that they're going to resurrect corpses to go and scare the living, and so that they can take over the earth, which makes no sense. But so Bela is one of the corpses they rise from the dead. And so since Bella could not be in the film, Ed got his wife's chiropractor, Dr. Tom, and Dr. Tom would wear a cape over his face anytime he was on screen. Now, he was about 40 years younger than Bela Lugosi and a foot and a half taller. So it's very clear that it's not Bela Lugosi in the movie. He does have the same hairline. That's about the only thing they share. And so Ed would do stuff like that. Tor Johnson in the movie, Vampiro was another horror host in the 50s, very popular in Los Angeles, big time. And Life magazine did the feature on her. She was, dated James Dean. She was a big time star in Los Angeles for sure on local television. And so he wanted her to be in the movie. The only way she would be in the movie is that she wouldn't say any dialogue because she read the script. So she said, "I'm not going to read into this. I'm not going to say any of this." So she plays another corpse, supposedly Bella's bride, although she's about 26 or 27 in the film, and he was like 80. It's supposed to be his wife, and it's just very bizarre. But so since she couldn't speak, they had to give dialogue to somebody. So Ed's bright idea was to give the dialogue to Tor Johnson, the guy who could barely speak English. So he does a lot of exposition in the film, and it's just garbled nonsense. You really can't tell. You have to watch it several times to tell what Tor is saying. That's the kind of filmmaking that Ed Wood did. If you've not looked into Ed Wood's films, I would highly recommend checking them out. They are some of the strangest things you will ever see, and beautiful. So long story short, Nine Race is my favorite bad movie, even though I don't think it's the worst movie ever made. I think Man of Sin and the Fate might be the worst movie ever made. Either that or Robot Monster, because Robot Monster is kind of like, it doesn't do anything. It's a movie about a guy in a gorilla suit with a fishbowl on his head. They couldn't afford a full alien costume, so they just built a helmet and put it on a gorilla body, and that's the monster in that movie. And his menacing weapons are a bubble machine. And it's just one of those movies. And so, we hope that we can expose people to those kind of movies because we love them. A big series for us, I don't know, there's not many of you in here probably old enough to remember a show called Matinee at the Bijou. They used to be on PBS. So when I was on a show called Matinee at the Bijou, what Matinee at the Bijou did was they didn't necessarily show horror films, they showed all kinds of films. So they create that experience. So you watch Matinee at the Bijou, they have a cartoon, they have a serial, like a short, that ran like we do as well. And then they have a feature film. So that's kind of what we've done in our format. We usually have a cartoon, we have a serial, like the last season we showed Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe as our serial from the 30s, and then we show a feature film, and we kind of break in and talk and do comedy bits and shit in between. I guess that's the technical term is shit.
Exactly.
What's your favorite band?
Actually, my Time is my favorite, but since he's taken it on, the Wasp one, the Wasp one, about this lady runs a cosmetics company and she's aging, and she's wanting to look younger, so she hires this fellow to inject her with bee royal jelly. And ultimately, she turns into a wasp. And when I was a kid, and my dad was in the Navy, so we lived overseas. And summer, I would visit my grandmother in Central Florida. And in Central Florida, there was a horror host called Dr. Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer episode I saw was 8 or 9. And I didn't exactly know what it was, but I knew it was something I wanted to do. So that's why the last one was my son.
I am a big fan of an Italian piece of over-the-top, post-apocalyptic, super trash called Rat's Night of Terror. And that is my favorite piece. Just bad dubbing, bad rat effects, twist endings. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
That's how when we go to select our movies, obviously we have to find movies that are in the public domain. And then we have to find movies that at least somebody other than us might want to watch. So I don't watch the rat movie. I don't think that movie's going to make the cut. But we have to find movies that are in public domain. And then we also have to find something that we can come up with some type of story on or something. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. And picking the movie it's a lot of work that goes into it. And one time, I don't know, this is not from sales out of school, but we attended the movie, we read the script, and we thought everything was good, and this is, I'll say Thursday, it was open on Monday. We found out that movie ain't in public domain. So we had to write like an episode in a day.
Yeah.
We had to write the whole 30 pages in one day. Which we did it, it worked out okay. We got, I think we have a guy that's supposed to check.
We do.
Public domain status, so.
Yeah, we have two actually that check those movies to make sure we can use them. A lot of studios, if you want to get a movie, it's expensive, especially for broadcasting. Our show is really done on a shoestring. It's a sponsored show, so we go out and, the station and we both go out and talk to businesses in the community. We have restaurants that sponsor us. We have a tattoo shop that sponsors us. We have a toy company that sponsors us, and so that's how we get. And then of course, as we say at the beginning of every episode, the announcer says, "Viewers like you, thank you." So when you contribute to your local PBS station, that actually helps us get shows like ours made and local productions like ours made. So that's part of where that money goes. So it's a really cool thing to do if you want to support public television. Because public television is where a lot of really good stuff gets done, as opposed to commercial stuff on the networks. A lot of good documentaries and all the stuff that we grew up with: Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, Electric Company, all of that stuff. Okay. But yeah, and so one of the reasons PBS came to us, the WSRE came to us, is that they were going to do a thing called PBS Nerd, and they did do it for a year. They had Doctor Who. They were showing classic Doctor Who episodes, and they were showing Mystery Science Theater 3000 because it had been licensed out for public broadcasting. Well, after the first year, they lost the rights to Mystery Science Theater 3000. They simply went to another network where they paid more, and those episodes came on there. So that's when they came to us and said, "Hey, we need to fill this time slot with something that we think people in the PBS nerd world would like to see. What would you like? Would you like to take that slot?" And we were like, "Yeah, we'd love to take that slot." So we did. And we've actually been kind of instrumental in at the end of last year, we lost Doctor Who because the rights to go back to something else. So we told them to get Red Dwarf. So now we're showing Red Dwarf after our show every week. We can show that in the market. But yeah, we just really love it. Stars on the show, some that may surprise you. Our friend Deep Roy, who you guys may know from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Never Ending Story, and Doctor Who, and Star Wars, and Yoda, and Empire Strikes Back. He's a very small man. He's a small actor, but a great guy. He's done an episode with us. We've had Colin Baker, the sixth Doctor Who, on our show. We've had who else have we had on? We've had several other guests come on and do the show over the years. And a lot of people, do promos. When we go to conventions like this, we get a lot of promos from people. So we have, we had one from Gilbert Godfrey, who just passed away. Gilbert's been on. The folks, Barry Bostwick and Tricia Quinn and Mel Campbell from, and when we did our first show, we were lucky enough to get Alice Cooper to introduce it. So that was really cool for us. But yeah, we've had a lot of folks interviewed on the show and been on the show. And we've even done some we got to show a movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek. I don't know how many people are familiar with that. It's a 70s drive-in movie. It was really a huge independent film in the 70s. It toured from drive-in to drive-in. Literally, the director, Charles Pierce, take the prints, throw them in the back of his truck, go to a city for a week. They show it at the drive-in, and he drives to the next city and put it on for a week. But we had that. It's about a Bigfoot type creature in Arkansas. It's sort of a semi-documentary about this Bigfoot type creature, the Boggy Creek Monster. And so we were lucky enough to get in contact with Lyle Blackburn. Some of you may read Rue Morgue magazine. Lyle writes a column in there about cryptids every month.
Small town monsters.
Yeah, he narrates a lot of the small town monsters films that are available on Amazon and things. But Lyle came on, and we set it up like we were doing a satellite interview with him, but he just filmed himself at his house. And we did a back and forth where we talked with Lyle about the Boggy Creek Monster. He wrote a book on it too, on the Boggy Creek Monster. So that was kind of fun. So we've done a lot of that kind of stuff too. And we were very lucky in this coming season. We still have episodes that are coming out. The great director Fred Olen Ray, who made such films as Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers and Mob Boss and a bunch of other really bad B movies from the 80s. Fred has been somebody I've known for a long time. So Fred came to us and we talked to him and we were like, hey, can we use some of your movies? And he's like, well, you can't show my movies because they're full of nudity and copious amounts of gore. But I own a lot of movies that I put out to my company for me, and you can show some of those. So recently we showed a movie that, again, could fall into the bad movie Hall of Fame. It's called Aquaman. I don't know how many people have seen Aquaman, but it's about a mutated octopus that turns into a man-like creature, and it's written by the same guy who wrote The Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is insane to me. But this is in the 70s, and that was the 50s. So obviously he had an intro or something because he wrote Aquaman. But it's basically just a straight rip-off of Black Lagoon, except it's a guy in an octopus. The thing about that is the guy in the octopus suit is Rick Baker, and one of his first monster creations he made was Aquaman. So the legendary Rick Baker had him working there multiple times for his prosthetics work.
That was, if you're talking about that, that's one of the hooks that we got when we wrote it originally for Least Access, when we could, within parameters, do whatever we want.
Right.
There were some things we couldn't do on PBS, and like I said, that Santa brought mittens to us. It wasn't brought as a gift. See, I don't know if you saw Reservoir Dogs, but we did a bit where Santa had offended you, so I tied him up and did stuck in the middle of you and cut Santa's ear off. And so to punish me, he thought he was seeing this werewolf, but we tamed the werewolf, and that's not something we can do on PBS. So what we do on PBS is each episode follows like a certain pattern, and one of those segments is to talk about obscure trivia in the film. And so like, the guy who's Rick Baker made the suit, the guy that was in the suit, in some Twilight Zone episodes, we really fill a lot of interesting, to us at least, in some viewers, trivia about film, like Jack Nicklaus is wearing a suit that I guess Marlon Brando wearing another one. So Jack Nicholson. I said Jack Nicholson,
Not the golf.
Jack Nicholson. And so we try to find out as much obscure trivia as we can about the movies, how they're made, how many days and stuff. And so I think that's one of the things that kind of sets us apart from other horror hosts, and why we're on PBS. We try to make it educational and
At least you make it educational.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the rest of it is just, like I said, Chip and I have done stuff together forever, as far as writing comedy and things like that. So we've written, and we made a joke a long time ago. I said that really we started doing the show to make each other laugh, and Chip said, "Yeah, we're still waiting for that to happen."
20 years later,
Yeah, for that to happen. But that's what we really do. We want to make ourselves laugh, and so if you're a fan of 70s TV and movies, you'll really enjoy it, and 80s too. But you'll really enjoy our show because we slip in a lot of really obscure references just for our own enjoyment, and so that's something that pops up a lot too. We also have traditions in our 3 seasons that we've done with PBS. We always mention Larry Storch, no matter what season it is. We always have an episode where Larry Storch comes up. You guys know who Larry Storch is? Larry Storch was an actor in the 60s and 70s who was huge. He was on F Troop. He was on a show in the 70s that was a big influence on us called the Real Ghostbusters, not the Ghostbusters that from the 80s, but the Ghostbusters, which it was he and his partner from F Troop, Forrest Tucker, and a guy named Bob Burns who played a gorilla, and they went out and hunted ghosts, and that was the original Ghostbusters that was on television in the 70s, and we were huge fans of that comedy, and so we took a lot from that as well as influence goes. And yeah, we get a lot of influence from 70s and 80s TV for sure.
Well, that's TK.
Yeah, we watched. That's what we did. We came home. We watched stuff after school. I kind of feel bad for some of you guys that are growing up now. You don't get that experience of coming home to the Beverly Hillbillies and Andy Griffith and and Cobra Kai, that kind of stuff every day. That we used to watch religiously every day because that was what was on. It was 3 channels. We had to watch something. We weren't going to watch the news. So so we would watch that.
Any other question?
Yes, sir.
Completely random curiosity. Have you all seen Armageddon?
Lamageddon? I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it really badly.
I recently saw it and I was obsessed. I had no idea why.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Llamageddon is the movie she's talking about, which is a killer llama movie. So.
From outer space.
Yes, yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's like, did you guys see the movie Rubber? Have you seen that movie about the killer tire? That's a great movie too. It's just a tire that goes around killing people.
And in Armageddon, I think the vast majority of their budget for the costume was on that one guy's t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
No one.
Yeah. I mean, that's the amazing thing to me now is that, you know, we knew a lot of people and we did it ourselves. We used to shoot movies on Super 8 and, you know, and when video cameras came along, that was amazing. We could shoot stuff on video cameras. We made movies all the time. But going back to, you know, the Monster Kids, which we kind of were in the tail end of, you know, when in the 50s and 60s, when there was a thing called Shock Package. I hate giving you all this history, but there's a thing called Shock Package. That's when all the Universal horror movies were released to television in the 1950s, and that's where horror hosts really came from, because these movies were put out, and like Dick Geisel is Count Duvall. Let's keep it in this room. I don't know if he wants everybody to know, but Dick was a TV weatherman, an anchorman in Paducah, Kentucky, when this Shock Package came around the second time in the 70s. And so he was like, they were like, we need somebody to host these movies. And so they said, well, just get Dick to do it. So Dick dressed up like a vampire and would go on TV in Paducah, Kentucky as M.T. Graves at that time. M.T. Graves, he did. And then he would host these movies, and then it just grew from there. And then when he moved to a bigger market, he developed Count Duvall. And Count Duvall, like I said, hosted movies forever in Washington, D.C. And still has a website at countdor.com where he hosts things regularly. I've been to his studio and filmed things with him. It's really exciting for me because, like I said, he's a great guy and great. Because I was always obsessed with horror hosts. We never really had a true horror host in Pensacola. We had a guy named Ted Ciano, who was a car dealer, who hosted a show called Popcorn Theater, and that was not a real horror host show. He was just a car dealer, and he mostly was advertising his T Ford. That was his car dealer. But he would show. Again, he would show a serial cartoon movie, and this is where I first saw King Kong, the original. It's where I first saw The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original. It's where I saw Forbidden Planet first. All those movies that really defined me as a person later in life. Like those are the movies that stuck with me, you know. And so, yeah, and you know, I saw The Wolfman that way. But Ted Ciano would also show stuff like Cactus Flower with Goldie Hawn. You know, it wasn't always, you tune in and you'd be excited, you'd think, oh, I'm going to watch the serial because I got to see what happens in Undersea Kingdom. And then you get to the movie and it's like, oh, we got Goldie Hawn and Cactus Flower time. You know, I'm going to bed. I'm sorry, Ted. You know, that was in the days when TV went off at midnight and they played the national anthem and the test pattern came up and that was it. Like,
There's so many foods that brought this.
exactly. That's the way it worked back in that day. And then if you got up at 5, you could watch the farm report, and then cartoons would start in the morning. That was really how TV worked in those days. So it's bizarre to think about now. Like, do you watch Cartoon Network? Well, you know, when I was a kid, we only got cartoons on Saturday morning. Saturday morning, if Charlie Brown was coming on, Charlie Brown Christmas or Thanksgiving was coming on, we were so excited. That was Cartoon of the Week. That was so exciting to us. Or you know, the Rankin Bass stuff, you know, Mad Monster Party and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and things like that. That was so exciting in those days to have something that was special. I still remember the little CBS special thing that spun in. It was a graphic and it would spin in. And that was like, oh my God, this is the greatest day of my life. This has happened. We're having a TV special. You know, that's kind of the way it was. I think a lot of people, you know, now it's very easy to make a movie. You don't have to have much of experience. You don't have to have much in the way of like buying. You don't have to go out and buy a film camera and put film in it. You can use your iPhone now and shoot a movie, and it has been done. So
you should do.
Yeah, you should. If you feel like making movies, just make movies. You know, that's another thing. We've always done that. We wanted to make a magazine. We just made a magazine. We wanted to be in professional wrestling. We just figured out a way to get into professional wrestling. We wanted to do a TV show. We figured out how to do a TV show. We
I
didn't.
wanted to be a dancer.
But we just whatever we wanted to pursue, we were interested in. We just did it. Nobody told us we we couldn't do it. We just decided to do it. I mean, apart from like my dad's.
People, not necessarily who could help us make, but the people who could get us in the door. I mean, once we got in the door, we were fine. But we had people who were there for us and who believed in us. And, Brent was trying for years to get us on. And I was convinced. I'm always the one there at home, and I'm the one that 5 minutes before the show. Get us out of here. And I was convinced that, like after we filmed the first episode, the director was going to see you guys from, we were going to be out the door. But no, we're filming our first scene.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Even if nobody believes in you, they're still.
Andy Warhol said, just make art. It doesn't matter if people like it or don't like it. It's not about them. It's about you. You make art for yourself. And if people like it, great. If they don't,
And
so what?
we don't really get into it. Nielsen. Nielsen, and people recognize him all the time.
Yeah, we get a lot of email. We get a lot of traffic on our Facebook page. People, I can only imagine, like, in Pensacola, we come on at 10 on Saturday nights. And here we come on at midnight. And most of our markets around Tennessee are midnight, and some of the other Florida markets are midnight. So I can only imagine people coming in after going out on a Saturday night, and they flip on the TV. They've got their Whataburger, Jack's, or whatever they've got, and they got it in a bag, and they got a drink, and they sit down, and they've been out drinking, and they turn on the TV and they flip it around, and they see us, and they have to be thinking, what the hell is happening? And I think we found a lot of viewership that way. But we've also gotten, like, the station itself has got handwritten letters from people who are older who say, I watch it with my grandson every Saturday night. He loves the movies. He loves you guys. We watch it every Saturday night. So that's very gratifying for us to know that people are watching it and enjoying it. So we have a little more time left, guys. Maybe like enough for 2 questions. Does anybody have a question? Come on, I know somebody's got a question.
What do you think about older horror scary movies versus the modern movies that are coming out today?
I'm open to everything. I love horror movies. I always have. I'm a Halloween guy. I got married, had a Halloween wedding. My wife and I had a costume wedding. We've always, Halloween at my house is we decorate the yard. We put up an elaborate display every year. Before I moved to my new house, the old house I had, we were the house in the neighborhood that everybody every year was like, what are they going to do this year?
They had a giant UFO crash in the yard, and they went out of it.
Yeah, we've done that. We did, I did a thing one year where I took I'd synchronized all of these lights and I put them inside plastic pumpkins. And then I had all the Halloween music playing, so the pumpkin was like a synchronized pumpkin display, all in the yard that was going the whole time. Yeah, that's horror is what I love. I love that kind of stuff. And like I said, we grew up with shows like Ghostbusters and Monster Squad. People think about the movie Monster Squad, which is great, but the TV show Monster Squad in the 70s was something else. It was Fred Grandy, who some of you are older, or some of you here in the kitchen might know from The Love Boat. He was Gopher on The Love Boat. But before that, he had a TV series where he was the curator of a wax museum, and at night the monsters would come to life. But they didn't go out and scare people, they saw them. So that's, again, what a concept, huh? So the stuff like that was always with me, always that's the stuff I was drawn to always. And comics, I love House of Mystery and horror comics, and so that was the kind of stuff I love. So I have a real love of classic horror movies. I think The Creature from the Black Lagoon is one of the greatest movies ever made. I really love that movie. It works on every level. It's so smartly written, which is sad because he wrote Aquaman later. And it's really well directed. Jack Arnold, a great director who doesn't get enough credit. Make Tarantula and other folks. It works. It just works. And it's you never see a costume like that. I think we've lost something with CGI in a lot of ways because there's something real about the creature in Creature from Black Lagoon. There's something that feels like he's really there. He's really menacing that you can't get with a CGI creature, I don't think. Because there's a man in that suit. Ben Chapman was the guy in that suit. Rico Browning did all the swimming, who were both terrific guys that I got to know. And yeah, it's just fantastic. But I do love modern horror movies too, if they're clever and and smart. You know, I mean, I think that the films that have affected me most in the last 10 years, I think Martyrs is one of those films. I don't know if you guys have seen Martyrs. That's a very graphic, very strong film, but it has a powerful message.
I like the Hereditary.
Yeah, Hereditary. I think those are interesting movies. Midsummer, I think, is a very entertaining, interesting movie. So what else have I seen in the last few years? I mean, anything that Guillermo del Toro did, like Pan's Labyrinth is one of my favorite movies. That's just a beautiful film that has horror elements, you know.
Sharknado.
Yes, well, there you go. Another great film, Sharknado. No. Having met Tara Reid or something, I will not watch Sharknado again. There's some, you know, I grew up in the 70s going to the drive-in. Again, a thing that's been lost to time now, which I think hopefully will come back. It kind of came back during COVID a little bit, but I really wish it would come back permanently because I saw movies like The Town That Dreaded Sundown, or I remember seeing, one of the things that was great about it is my parents, they didn't particularly take us to movies that we should have been seeing. So we go see something like Macon County Line but we're really not meant for kids. They're really like exploitation, you know, basically we had kids should see. So I go drive-in, it was a twin screen in our town. Showtown drive-in had twin screens. So they'd be watching whatever they were watching with nudity and violence and all that, you know, a gangster movie or like I said, one of these, you know, Southern crime movies or whatever with all the nudity and gore. And I'd turn around to the other screen because they'd be showing Godzilla movies. And I would sit there and though I didn't have any sound, do you really need sound in a Godzilla movie? I mean, it's cool, but you can tell what's happening in a Godzilla movie without sound. So I would watch the Godzilla movies through the back windshield of the car. I would turn completely around and watch that kind of stuff. So I love all horror movies, but I really do have a sweet spot for anything from the 30s forward. I mean, the 30s through the 70s for me, and there's great stuff in the 80s too. Don't get me wrong, although there was a lot of crap in the 80s too. I love crap too. So don't. Yeah, I mean, not anything horror, but I think there's a certain purity to the movies that you know, people talk about slasher movies, but Halloween is not really that graphic a film. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not really that graphic a film. You never see anyone really being killed in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, and you never see him hang her on a hook. It's all implied. You do see her later hanging on the hook in the background, but you never see her. You just see her go like this. You never see the actual act. You never see that much blood in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, I was lucky enough to get to know Gunnar Hansen, and I'm really good friends with John Dugan, who played Grandpa in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's what they said. They said at the time, we didn't realize how graphic this movie was going to look because it wasn't on set. It just didn't happen on set. But it was so well edited and put together that it really it plays that way. People think they see a lot more than they see in that movie. I think that's a skill that a lot of people don't have today. They just want to put it all on the screen. You see everything. I think that's kind of silly. I'd rather have suspense than I would gore any day. I think a good suspenseful movie is always more entertaining.
Your mind will always come up with the worst thing for you.
Right.
Speaking of driving, some of your Star Wars about your dad.
Oh, well, yeah, Star Wars.
I saw Ghostbusters the first time.
Well, we didn't go to. I don't think I ever went to an indoor movie theater until I was like 10 years old. I really don't. I think the only reason we went to a movie then was because it was like a Disney thing playing. I think maybe Fantasia had come back on one of its re-releases, and I really wanted to see it. So my mom took me to a walk-in theater, and I was shocked because I'd never experienced such a thing. But we went to see Star Wars it got to the drive-in about 8 months after it had been released. And I'd already read the comics, I'd listened to the records, I'd done everything. But it finally came to the drive-in, and my dad was like, okay, fine, we'll go see the stupid Star Wars movie. So we go to see Star Wars. We're watching it. I'm very excited. You know, Han comes back in the Millennium Falcon. He shoots Darth Vader's TIE fighter. It spins off into space. Luke hits the Death Star. It blows up. My dad cranks the car, and we're gone. Because we're not waiting for the credits. We're not waiting for the the end scene of Star Wars because we're getting out of there to beat traffic. So I never saw the medal ceremony until I was much, much older when it finally came out on VHS. I finally got to see the medal ceremony in Star Wars. Although I would read about it in like Starlog or something and see a picture of it, I'd be like, I didn't see that part. What happened to that? You know, and so yeah. So I never got to see that because my dad was just like, no, we're getting out of here. We got to get out of here before the crowd. Because it was packed. It was still 8 months after it released. It was still Star Wars. It was still packed. So yeah, I never got to see that scene until much, much later in my life.
I mean, and stuff like that in the 90s, what was it called? Night Fright Theater.
Yeah, but that was just
It was a package that they bought at the restaurant movies, and there was no host or anything. They would show like Terror Vision and Dolls and it was really good. Late 80s, early 90s. Like,
yeah, and there was one theater in our town called the Plaza Theater, which had at one point had been like the theater in school. It was huge. It's where I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark eventually, and I saw, you know, by that time I was able to see things like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. There, it was a huge theater, great sound, great lights, all that, you know, great projection, all that stuff. But at the end of the '80s, it started to go downhill. It was a theater because the malls had taken over, the Cineplexes had taken over, so the Plaza was getting really short. And so that's fine. We got like 2 minutes. So we would go there and see big movies when I was a kid, you know, when I was like 10, 11, 12, things like that. And then suddenly that theater started going down and they started showing things like Roger Corman movies, like Not of This Earth with Tracy Lords, or it would be, you know, Elvira Mrs. to the Dark played there, which was not a big wide release film when it came out. It just wasn't. And then I think the last movie I saw there was a Jim Wynorski. You guys know who Jim Wynorski is? He's a really bad director, B-movie director. I love his movies. But the last movie they showed there was called The Haunting of Morella, which was based on the Edgar Allan Poe story, but had nothing to do with it. But it did have a lot of topless women in it. I do remember that. I think I was about 18 when that came out, so that was a really interesting film. But yeah, I love the movie going experience. I love going to see movie with people. I'm glad that COVID is finally leaving us so that we can all get back to seeing movies in the theater, hopefully again, because that's the way to see them. Guys, we're gonna wrap up because we're not going to be like the last panel and almost run over. But thank you for coming and listening to us. If you want to see over towards the celebrity area, we're right next to Naomi Grossman from there, Tom Arnold. We have T-shirts, we have pint glasses, we have free stickers. So if you haven't gotten a sticker, come get a sticker. And buttons and things like that. So just come and see us. Or if you want to just talk movies, I'm happy to always talk movies with people. It's one of my favorite things to do if you couldn't tell by it today. So thank you again, and hopefully tonight, midnight, turn on your local PBS station and watch us here in Alabama. We're probably going to do that here at that hotel that we're staying at, go and just watch our own episode because we don't get to see it in Alabama. So thanks a lot, guys. Thank you.
Might have go streamed it maybe.
Yeah.
Panel will stream.
Figure out what camera you guys. Oh.
But it wasn't like straight up and down, it was like actually
Oh.
Thank you.